At some point in the early 20th century, maybe the late 19th century, the powerful figures who had discovered the potentials of the Luminary Brothers' pioneering work in cinema realized that there was a potential in media to manipulate what people believe. Now, if you look at the era of reform in Japan, the Meiji era, you see that public opinion was considered to be the basis of public law, which is more or less as it should be, but public opinion is a problematic affair sometimes, and there's been a lot expended on manipulating public opinion or influencing it in powers of persuasion. On the sad side, that gave rise to demagoguery, but and also gave rise to a diverse field of opinions, street side orders even. So the manipulation of public affairs by influencing opinion has both good and bad to it. And for a long time, the newspaper industry was one that prioritized the independence of the editorial pages, and the choices for presentation of news were considered to be the province of people who had wizened through the era of Upton Sinclair to embrace fact checking and reduce bias. And this has evolved with things like the spirit of the civil rights movement. Well, when you look at cinema as potential hijacking, like the whole world of what people believe in as a taking of Pelham 123, you get to the story of the bird, what Houdini pulled, what Disney pulled with the long planned operation from the royal empires of the master stroke of evacuating John Lennon and making it appear that he was dead to confuse people about such things as AIDS and the galvanizing of the fundamentalist right wing in preparation for the deluge. Now, to be savvy and smart, we lost all but 30% of our wildlife. We do need to address social ecology, eco schools, eco cities. We have to do it pretty soon. But one of the potentials in media was known as scandal. And that gave rise to tabloid journalism, scandal journalism. And scandal journalism is used even with crank symphonics about imminent nuclear disaster. Not to say that it isn't serious, not to say that flirtations of an Oscar wild variety might not have reason to depress the public sentiments about Prince Andrew, for example. Not to say that the public doesn't have some right to know when it comes to what was going on with what they called an escapade or on Mount Desert Island. The point is, though, that by playing into the trap, I proved there was a trap, and it was the jaws of a long planned operation. And the people who were behind it were behind the evacuation, the Houdini pulled by Lennon. So what they're using is human sentiments about grace and faith and God to play fiddlers to um, eviction processes um, with the threatening overtones of Armageddon's wheel. And some of these people probably think, kick their heels up and think, so what? I'll get to see Armageddon. Like James Watt used to say, I don't know when Jesus is coming back. These are politics that had no business getting into the government, but when you say something against right wing religious um, bigotry, you come up against a certain field of anthropology that's realistic about how the human race evolved. I mean, with the differences in um, our height, weight, attractiveness, came bias and bigotry that gave rise to picking and choosing of what is an art masterpiece and what is a throwaway recreational piece of art. And the basic teachings of the gospel are that all people have value. And that's what the United States of America embraced with the Bill of Rights. And we've argued how to extend that universally ever since. There were always abolitionists opposed to slavery. So it's been hard to do what was necessary to convince people that all human beings have value. Well, the celebrity superstate in Hollywood weighed in. Nobody is as valuable as the Almighty, and you'll see that even the so-called reactionaries feel the same way when it comes to John Lennon. So they played this game of personality called politics, which is all it is. It's scandal mongering. It's the wrong way to go. It's not public information. It's manipulation of public opinion. So, you can cross that out if you want to and say, no, that's not true. But it is true. The things that they've done have been calling having an ace up the sleeve Trump. The dealing from a stacked deck under the table. Like when you look at Russia's arguments for what happened in the Ukraine, what's happening in the Ukraine, some of it makes sense, and you can be enlisted into sympathies with them a little bit. But at the same time, you can't possibly be sympathetic to the terrible things that were done to the children of the Ukraine and the young people of the Ukraine and the old people of the Ukraine. That's outrageous to sympathize with that. But in the Ukraine, there was so much corruption that the oligarchs on both sides, just like in the United States, did leapfrog manipulation with this Ouspensky cult from Hollywood to create a deluge so that they could say, we're up against the wall of the nature of reality, of the forces of the Old Testament, the deluge beyond our comprehension. And this was an Axis plan to get even, a long gestating Hitler Stalin pact, so to speak. The Trump between Putinese have avoided getting wise to it because they like the idea. Everybody's scared of Ringo. They like the idea that Lenin and Reagan were the great heroes of the Superman powers, the Ubermensch, the ultra race, and that crappy little boohoo boys like me don't get any consideration. What they don't know, they should be held responsible for not knowing, and so on. And they, licky chop it all up with the storyline about the baby in the womb, being a metaphor for all of this. And you could see it in Peter Gabriel's Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. He does sadistic things like Glenn McKenzie's Tweety Bird, to an image of a baby. It's really very sad because what's missing in this is just leveling with people, talking it over, saying, okay, we need to get our priorities figured out. I'm pleased don't drive. We're in an emergency crisis. We're trying to draw back from the brink. Don't drive recreationally. President Biden could say that. He could get up in front of Congress and say a speech. I'm asking you as your friend. I'm not giving you an order as commander in chief. I don't have the power. Freedom to drive is basic in America, but I'm asking as a friend of the earth, would you please desist from recreational driving? Please ask your friends. Friends don't let friends drive drunk. Friends don't let friends recreationally drive either, and to try to get this problem, resolved before we hit 1.2.